From escaping the war to fleeing to Thailand, the Hmong were noted as the most primitive refugees in America. In The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down, a Hmong refugee family interacts with a small hospital in California when their young daughter, Leah Lee, began exhibiting signs of severe epilepsy. Throughout the book, there is constant miscommunication and misunderstanding between Leah's parents, Now Cao and Phua Lee, and the Merced doctors, Neil Ernst and Peggy Philp, which leads ultimately to Leah becoming brain dead. Both groups are trying to do what is best for Leah, but have conflicting ideas on what that looks like because of their different cultures, and neither group is willing to compromise much on their beliefs. This is a result of ethnocentrism, resistance to acculturation, and differing values of family and kinship.
In The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down, both the doctors and Leah's parents are guilty of being ethnocentric towards the other group. It's easy to see how the American doctors express their ethnocentric views as they try to force their medical system on the Hmong family, who clearly rejects it. An obstetrician at the hospital explains it like this, quote, "This is a different kind of tension because they don't know that they are doing something bad. According to their beliefs and principles, they are trying to protect the mother and the baby and their way of life. And what you think is necessary happens to be exactly the opposite of what they think is appropriate." End quote. Both groups care about the health and well-being of Leah, but they have different ways of addressing her situation. When the doctors become tired of Now Cao and Phua not giving the proper medications to their daughter, we see once again their ethnocentrism exposed as they put Leah through the foster care system. This seems to be a way for them to try and control the situation as they see fit. It's awfully paternalistic of the Americans. To them, what Leah's parents are doing is wrong, and if Now Cao and Phua don't obey, then their consequence is losing their daughter to a foster home. When you believe that you have all the right answers and the right way to live life, how then do you teach others the same things without stripping them of their culture and values? However, Now Cao and Phua were not innocent in the matter. They too exhibited ethnocentricity every time they rejected help from the Americans and continued to do things their way. They didn't give their daughter the medicine because they didn't want to lessen the power of the shaman. Even at the end, they see the hospital as evil because even though Leah was legally alive, her spirit was gone. The problem is there's never a moment where the two truly try to understand and listen to each other. If there was a way to bridge the cultural gap, then maybe they could work together to truly find the best of both worlds. But this doesn't happen, and the result of that is the termination of Leah's brain activity. The Americans did attempt to bridge the gap by bringing in a social worker to explain why and how they wanted to help. But even then, after hearing how to care for their daughter, Now Cao and Phua intentionally choose to ignore this knowledge and go on living the Hmong way.
When the Hmong people moved into the city of Merced in California, their resistance to culture change was glaring. Even though Phua and Now Cao had lived in the United States for 17 years, they did not know any English, cooked only traditional Hmong food, which included freshly butchered animal meat, celebrated Hmong holidays and traditional festivals only, played traditional Hmong instruments, practiced their own technique of medicines, which included using a shaman they called Si Ning, and knew nothing about the political structure or current events of America. The couple also showed resistance to American culture by purposely not giving Leah her medication. They admitted that with too much medicine, the Si Ning would not be as strong. The Hmong people came to the United States simply to be free to live as independent people within their own culture, not to develop American customs and ideas. The first couple of years that Leah went to the Merced Hospital, the doctors were also very resistant to change. They wanted to treat Leah the way they treated every other patient, and that was through traditional American ways of medicine and procedures. This is a lot like how in my first journey, a main theme of the fast food industry was redundancy. Fast food industries want their customers to comply within the boundaries of a small number of menu items. The doctors at the Merced Hospital expected the Hmong family to just accept the advice and medication without challenging them. It was not until later that the doctors began to learn the culture of the Hmong and allow a Si Ning to perform the jobs of a shaman in the hospital. This could be a result of the cultural schema theory. After several encounters with the Hmong families, the doctors at the Merced Hospital learned how to respond to them. While it would be a stretch to say that the doctors became acculturated to Hmong culture, they did begin to understand aspects of it.
According to GCANTH Hmong, a database for Hmong information, the traditional Hmong culture organizes themselves as a patrilineal clan system, meaning all property, family, history, and descent is passed through the male members of lineage. The clan system provides political and social organization. They also have a blood marital relationship where females belong to the clan they are born into until they marry. Females must marry to a member of another clan, whereas the males are considered a member of their clan permanently since birth. However, marital ties are considered secondary relationships and are useful for expanding their clan network. The Hmong had to flee their homeland of China due to persecution in the 19th century. From interviewing a Cambodian American for Journey 4, the communist dictatorship called the Khmer Rouge during the late 20th century caused many citizens to flee as well in Cambodia to escape persecution. Both persecuted groups relocated to several other countries throughout Asia as well as to the United States. Because the Hmong had to leave their country, a lot of their traditions must have been lost, since they were not discussed as having such a structure in the book. Instead of being centered around an extending clan network, they held a dominant immediate family focus. Emigrating to the United States forced them to adapt to a certain extent. Their values of family essentially created their culture. Because of Leah's condition, her parents always coddled her and cared for their daughter, raising her as their little princess. They spoiled her more than other children because she needed it. Whatever she wanted, she received. For example, she often would walk up to her parents with her arms raised high in the air, symbolizing she wanted to be picked up and held. Leah constantly wanted to be picked up and held by her family, so a lot of physical contact was important for her well-being. In contrast, if a Western family was in this situation where physical touch was not a part of their family culture, the outcome would be drastically different.
In conclusion, throughout the book, The Spirit Catches You and You Fall by Anne Fodderman, it is evident that there are significant barriers between the American doctors and the Hmong families in California. There are many reasons for these barriers, but some of the more significant ones include ethnocentrism, resistance to cultural change, and differences in kinship and family values between the two cultures.